So, people are confused to no fault of their own about the current strength of the Imperial Armada in Star Wars canon. I say to no fault of their own because canon has been filled with inconsistencies, back and forth, but it's something that's going to have to be addressed because unless Thrawn is going to be working as a lone wolf, which would be awful, he's going to need allies, and those allies are going to need starships. It seems obvious that the Thrawn campaign, the new canon Thrawn campaign, will culminate in one final battle, as did his Legends campaign at Bilbringi. So how powerful can he possibly be in this time period without disrupting pre-established canon, or without seriously disrupting the canon anyway? By this point in 9 to 10 ABY, the Empire is pretty banged up, to put it lightly. The New Republic is beginning disarmament, although we did see that they just introduced a completely new class of starship. But unsurprisingly, given that the Empire had, some say, 25,000 Star Destroyers, millions of support ships, and a dozen dreadnoughts, there do remain pockets of power across the galaxy. I mean, this is contemplated by The Mandalorian Season 3, where Din Djarin is basically commissioned, if he chooses, to hunt down Imperial warlords. We've often seen, just in many one-off comics, stories, or even shows, that the Empire still holds on to power. For example, Alphabet Squadron has the 204th Imperial Fighter Wing. Now, the thing to note is that the events of Alphabet Squadron took place before the Battle of Jakku, and that's part of the reason why the Empire is so fractured. Jakku was a planned immolation of the Empire, which was meant to take with it the New Republic. Fortunately for the New Republic, they survived, but the Imperial Starfleet was dealt a massive blow, and that was thought to be largely the end of organized Imperial efforts, although I have a feeling, based on what we saw during the Imperial Council scene of Mando Season 3, that will change. That scene, which I thought was among the most interesting of the entire season, showed several Imperial commanders, including Pelion, who somehow is expecting Thrawn's return. And that's honestly what's so confusing right now. We don't know exactly what portion of the Empire is destroyed at this point. The true strength of the Empire was being purposefully obscured as Star Destroyers in the hundreds or thousands were being hidden in nebula across the galaxy. After the planned destruction, we also know that many of these ships would have survived. We know this because a portion of the Imperial fleet, made up almost totally of hardliners, would basically leave for the unknown regions alongside the Eclipse Super Star Destroyer, not the Eclipse from Star Wars Legends. The Eclipse in canon was probably an Executor type, but that would go on to form the backbone of the First Order. And I think, by the way, it would have been really smart to have those ships be what were eventually turned into the Zeistin in Episode 9. I mean, it's hard to explain how you could refit so many ships, but it's even harder to explain how you could build them all. Anyway, as you can probably tell, by this point the Empire is really divided into several sub-factions. There is the hardliners going out to make the First Order, there are several independent warlord groups remaining in the galaxy, and it seems like there may even be a larger Imperial remnant organized by Pelion, who states that the secrecy of Thrawn's return is the key to their success. Now, I was actually somewhat surprised to see the Imperial hardliners outside of the galaxy, the proto-First Order types, working with the Remnant types. You would almost think that they probably want the Empire in the galaxy to fail, so in secrecy they can rebuild and come back stronger. But on the other hand, it also makes sense, hey, if you can strike a fatal blow against the New Republic now, we don't have to hide like rats in the unknown regions and rebuild, we can come back strong. And I think that's how Thrawn is going to be treated, which, by the way, is actually how he was in Star Wars Legends. Pre-Thrawn, there were many disparate warlord groups across the galaxy, and none were really able to actually threaten to topple the New Republic and regain the status of Empire. I mean, don't get me wrong, Warlord Zinj, the Pentastar Alignment, there were many powerful forces in the galaxy, but they were usually centered on one small area. However, when Thrawn returned, most of these warlords actually focused on maintaining a defensive posture posture, instead giving ships, crewmen, and resources to Thrawn, who launched his guerrilla campaign against the New Republic. In canon, Thrawn could put together a very powerful force. Not only will he be supported by the larger remnant groups, i.e. the Proto-First Order, whatever Gideon had going, Pelion's forces as well, but it's my guess that many of the independent warlords, the Imperials who have maybe 2 or 3 ships, will just fully join Thrawn and serve him, as he's basically the closest thing the galaxy has had to a new emperor. Palpatine designed the Empire so that without him, it would fall apart. This was true in both canon and legends. Also true is the fact that no single individual emerged who could grab the reins of power. Thrawn is able to do so because of his unique competency. He's pretty much universally recognized as a military mastermind, which leads to others falling in. And that actually kind of peeved Palpatine off in Dark Empire and Star Wars Legends. He was quite happy to see Thrawn lose. But there's also at least 2 more sources from which Thrawn could gain power. One is closely related to his story in the OG Thrawn trilogy, but I think there's hints of it. Thrawn could simply steal ships or create a new force of his own. In Star Wars Legends, he used Sparti cloning cylinders to manufacture a new military, essentially. In canon, it's quite clear that the zombies of Peridia are the stand-in for that, plus whatever sort of magic he's going to get access to on Dathomir. But the first part of the Thrawn series in Legends also culminated with him attempting to steal ships from a New Republic shipyard at Sluis Van. I don't think it's a coincidence that they've focused a ton on this new Republic cruiser type, and I wouldn't be surprised for Thrawn to make a grab at that. There also was, in the original novel trilogy, the Katana fleet, the Dark Force, sort of a lost fleet of hundreds of ships which Thrawn tries to take control of, and which, in an Empire Strikes Back-esque moment, he does, becoming significantly more powerful after the second novel. I wouldn't be surprised to see another plot element like this introduced. But the other big potential source of power for Thrawn is holdings, and specifically the Chiss Ascendancy. Now, this wasn't an aspect of the original Thrawn trilogy, but it was developed in later novels. Thrawn basically created his own regime, the Empire of the Hand, which existed in the Unknown Regions. It was largely an amalgamation of Chiss culture and people with the Empire. It was like Thrawn's own personal mini empire. There have been hints that Thrawn is working more closely with the Chiss than the Empire in the Thrawn novels, but whether the main media will actually stick with that, I think is left to be seen. It may be a little too complex just for average viewers. So Thrawn could have a very powerful fleet, equally as powerful as his forces in Star Wars Legends, which were comprised of several dozen Star Destroyers, many support ships, and more. So I think there is real hope for a big space battle to end off this part of Star Wars, and I really hope it just gets the attention it deserves. Those are my thoughts, though. Let me know yours down below.